After weeks of promises, the Biden stimulus proposal is here. So grab your coffee, grab your cat, and let's get into this Biden stimulus proposal. I'm going to break it down piece by piece. That way you know everything that's included and you know exactly what to expect. So this proposal is called the American Rescue Plan. This includes a lot of familiar pieces, things that you're going to be totally aware of, but it also has a few pieces that might come as a surprise. There's a few that were definitely surprising to me. So here's what's included. First off, stimulus checks. We're looking at $1,400 direct stimulus checks. This isn't a huge surprise. After the last few days, we first heard Chuck Schumer clarify that we're looking at likely $1,400 payments, not the $2,000 payments. And then just yesterday, when we got some rumors about this stimulus proposal before it came out, we were also looking at the $1,400 payment. So that's not a huge surprise there. All along, they were saying $2,000 checks as a difference from $600 through that Cash Act. And then only after that, we heard some hinting of $2,000 flat on top of $600. But now we know it's $1,400. We're also looking at unemployment boost extensions. This isn't a big surprise either. We're looking at extensions through the end of September. However, what is kind of a surprise here, they are proposing to increase the rates from $300 a week to $400 a week. And that would start as soon as the stimulus bill is enacted, if it gets voted through, and would again continue through the end of September where it sits right now. We're also looking at $350 billion to state and local governments. This, of course, is one of the most heated areas between Democrats and Republicans. Most Republicans don't want anything to do with state and local government funding. They say if a state is out of money, that's their own fault. And they also cite that certain states have actually earned more money in the last year compared to the year before that. Whatever side you sit on with that, that's going to be a hotly debated topic once this bill is handed off to senators and voted on and debated on in various committees. We're also looking at $170 billion for K through 12 schools and for colleges. It doesn't say exactly what this is to be spent on, but we can safely assume that it's going to have to do with reopening safely as more and more in-person classes come into session throughout this year. We're also looking at, and this one was a big surprise to me, an increase of the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Currently, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. That's more than double what it sits at as of right now. The one thing with this is 29 states are already higher than $7.25. Here in Arizona, I think it's $12.50 or $13 an hour. But for most employers, it doesn't really make that big of a difference because to be competitive, you have to pay so much more than minimum wage anyways. Like we start our workers at $15 an hour anyways. So if I think for most companies, it won't make a big difference. 8 states and Washington, D.C. already have minimum wages at $15 an hour. However, even though I don't think it's going to matter for most employers, I do think that this is going to be a huge debate once it comes to the floor. And personally, I will be very surprised if this actually gets passed through. I mean, this has been a hot topic ever since minimum wage has been a thing. And I don't see that changing just because it's as part of a stimulus bill at this point. So that's going to be really interesting to follow and see what exactly happens there. Maybe we'll see some increase. I would be very surprised if we see the federal minimum wage more than double. Maybe it'll jump up to $10 an hour or something like that. But 15, I just feel like there's so many people who are going to be against that in the Senate especially, but we shall see. We're also looking at an extension of the eviction and foreclosure moratoriums, and that would extend through the end of September. I didn't see any mention of a fund for rent assistance or for landlord assistance specifically. We don't have all the bill text yet, but where it sits, they're just looking at extending those moratoriums. This one's a little bit concerning to me because that would mean the moratorium has extended for far more than a year by the time the end of September comes. And that I just don't know what's going to happen at the end of those moratoriums after all. I mean, there's certain people who literally would not have paid rent for over a year at that point, and then they're just expected to pay for a year or more rent, or landlords are supposed to be able to afford this the whole time. I know there are funds in the $900 billion stimulus bill that allows for housing assistance, but you just have to assume that there's certain people that haven't been able to be part of that. It's a little scary to think what's going to happen after more than a year of moratoriums. Next, we have on the docket $50 billion to COVID-19 testing and distribution. $50 billion. That is so much money. We have a major logistics issue here as far as getting these vaccines out to people, and that's a ton of funding, but throwing money at a problem doesn't always fix the problem. There's going to have to be some people in place who really know what they're doing to make that $50 billion as effective as possible. We're also looking at $20 billion more for a vaccine program for states, localities, and tribes. So a total of $70 billion just on vaccine-related issues. That's a huge amount of money. If we think of this in terms of comparing it to the EIDL grant, the first EIDL grant was $20 billion, and that gave at least $1,000 in grant money to millions of small businesses. So this is more than triple the size of the EIDL grant program just for vaccines, just to kind of put that in perspective. I mean, that's almost how much it costs to get $600 stimulus checks to like 150 million Americans. From here, we also have temporary expansions of the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. And I think this is going to benefit a lot of people. I'm sure some people are familiar with these already, but I'm going to kind of break them down in case you're not familiar with them. So they're proposing to make the child tax credit fully refundable this year, and they're increasing the amount. So they're increasing the maximum credit from $2,000 to $3,600 for any child that's under 6 years of age. And then for children age 6 to 17, they're upping that to $3,000. So there's some huge increases there, and that's per child. So as you can see, if you have multiple children, that makes a massive difference. And then on top of this, we're also looking at a 1-year expansion of the earned income tax credit. And through this proposal, we would be looking at an increase of the maximum amount, a raise of the income limit to be able to apply for this, and expand the eligibility for older workers. Now, the earned income tax credit works kind of like how a stimulus check works, except it's a tax credit that scales down or up depending on your income level and the number of children you have. So I'm going to put up a graph here so you can see what we're looking at right now for the earned income tax credit. You can see if you have children, you receive a huge benefit from this. But starting with adults with no children, the earned income tax credit, maximum amount is $538 a year, and that starts to scale down at $8,790 a year in income, and scales down pretty fast to just over $15,000 a year. You receive nothing from that. But once you have one child, you can see this jumps up to $3,584 a year. And you can receive this maximum amount all the way up to over $19,000 in income. And then this scales down just like how a stimulus check does to $41,500 a year in income. And you can see with 2 and 3 children, it jumps up even higher. With 3 children, the credit amount is $6,660 a year. And that scales down to an income of $50,900 a year. So there's a huge benefit here for those who have children, not so much for those with no children, but we're looking at an expansion of this through this proposal. So moving from here, the first stimulus bill, the one that we're looking at right now, is the first of 2 likely stimulus bills from President Biden. The next one is expected in about a month, sometime in February, and that one will focus on more long-term things like infrastructure, climate issues, racial issues, and job creation. And referring to this first stimulus bill, the $1.9 trillion one, Chuck Schumer, who is set to be the majority leader of the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, have already come out with comments saying that they like this bill, they're praising it, and it's a step in the right direction. And Biden all this time has been saying that the goal with this bill is to make it as bipartisan as possible. However, I'm not totally sure that's the case at nearly $2 trillion. I mean, if we just think back a few months, we had so many Republicans who didn't even want anything around $1 trillion. So what has changed now to make them more welcome to a $2 trillion bill. That's kind of tough to say. I think there's going to be heated debate no matter what. As much as they want to say that this was a bipartisan proposal and it's narrowly focused, there's definitely going to be people who are complaining about the size of this bill and all the things it's spent on and how they could pare it down. There's 100% going to be a lot of debate on this, and we'll see how exactly it shapes up. I think as far as items that stay on a stimulus bill, stimulus checks would be one of the things that will hold on most tight to a stimulus bill. And one thing that we don't see in this $1.9 trillion proposal is more small business relief, which is kind of surprising to me because this was hinted at in the last few days that it would likely be included. But we might see this as part of the Biden February stimulus plan if things shake out how they have it planned right now. One thing to mention, though, is the Paycheck Protection Round 2 actually starts today, the 15th, for certain small lenders, and then it'll be open for all lenders on Tuesday the 19th. So it's really important to have all your ducks in a row right now for your PPP round 2 if you're looking for that, if you're self-employed, if you're an independent contractor, if you are a sole proprietor. Get all your paperwork in place right now so by the time Tuesday comes around and everyone can start their application, or at least get their applications in, you can start the application now. I actually have a lender linked in the description if you're looking for one, or you can just search on Google for SBA approved lenders. But get your ducks in the row now so by the time Tuesday comes, you can have everything in order and get your slice of that funding as quickly as possible. So that's going to do it for today. I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.